talking here today to so many people, especially about something as different as sharks, but I want to start by finding out how many people in this audience would actually get in the water with a 4-metre shark. Show of hands. All right, there's a few crazy people. That's good. That's really good to know. So the first time I did that, I was 12 years old. And it's okay if you think I'm crazy, because everyone at school did. But to me, it was normal. That was life. I grew up in the oceans, and sharks were just another one of those amazing creatures. And I, in particular, had this fascination with sharks. My father scuba dives, my mother scuba dives, and it just became something that I did. So when I had school holidays, we'd go traveling, and we'd go to amazing places all over the world, but really in Australia mainly, and I'd get to dive with these sharks. And it was one of those experiences that really stuck with me forever. The sharks were my siblings, they were my friends, they were my family, they were my pets. And when I was 14 years old, my passion for the oceans really took over, and I actually left school and started homeschooling. And this was so that I could devote more time to traveling and diving with my father, who's an underwater photographer. So I went back to these places where I started diving and expecting, this is awesome, I'm free now, I'm free from school and I can go dive with sharks. Only the sharks that I once knew as a child were gone, and they hadn't swum away or moved to another reef. They were actually fished out. So back then, I was 14 years old, and these sharks had disappeared from the areas I knew, and I thought to myself, my lifetime is too short to have seen a change in our oceans. So I quickly adopted the belief that I could also make a change in the rest of my lifetime. And that's when I got involved, I guess, in conservation. So I'm sure many people in the audience might already have their minds made up about sharks, thanks to the movie Jaws and certain other media stations. But here's some things you may not know. For example, we know about the ivory trade and the rhino horn trade, but it's no different with sharks. Shark finning kills 100 million sharks a year. The fins are cut off the sharks, and they're usually thrown back in the water alive to bleed to death or suffocate. And these sharks sell for up to $300 a kilogram on Asian markets for a delicacy called shark fin soup. And that is wiping out populations of sharks throughout the world. They're also the apex predator. So if sharks are removed from an ecosystem, everything in that ecosystem collapses because they control everything. They are much like the lions in the Sahara. They're also like dolphins in their life. They take a long time to grow, and they only have few young, so they're very delicate creatures, and they're easily overfished. They're also amazing creatures. They haven't really changed in millions of years, purely because they're already perfect. Evolution has made them the perfect creature. 90% of sharks are now gone from our oceans. So 4 people die on the road every day in Australia, and more than 90 are injured. The deadliest of all Australian creatures is the European honeybee. It kills about 10 people a year. An average of 1 death occurs annually from a shark attack in Australia. So I hope that puts it into perspective for you. And when we hear about these mindless man-eating creatures, it's really not as bad as we are told. And I can say that because I've been in the water with them. I've dived with tiger sharks, reef sharks, cageless with a great white. And that's why I spend my life now trying to, I guess, educate people that they're not these scary creatures. But why am I telling you this? Well, because the things happening to sharks in our waters and throughout the world are so hidden by that fear that we have of them. They're usually not seen. And I think it's about time that they are seen. Our government, for example, is trying to lift the ban on protected species of sharks so that we can cull them so that people will feel safer when they go swimming at the beach. 100,000 sharks are taken from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park and World Heritage Area each year, legally. And you can now go into a supermarket like Woolworths and buy shark from the Great Barrier Reef. And we are so disconnected from this animal, we don't even realize that when we're eating flake, we're eating shark. And when we're eating shark, we could be eating hammerhead or blue shark or something that we've just seen in a documentary on TV. Or you could be eating my friends that I dived with when I was 12 years old. So at the age of 14, it was really like, what can I do? I'm too quiet to be heard. I'm too young for anyone to listen to me. And my idea then was film. I figured I would show people that I've been in the water with sharks and I've still got my limbs. I would show people the truth about these animals, that they're not these mindless killers, and they won't believe me when I say that. So I thought I could bring back footage. And I thought, hey, that would be easy, but it wasn't. I had to teach myself a lot of things. I have a mentor where I live in Byron Bay, and I wash his dishes, so I get advice on how to use cameras. I really taught myself everything I know. My camera's broken down many times. I've physically exerted myself to get footage, but that was my journey into conservation. I want to show you a film now, actually, that I've collected footage for since I was 14 years old, and I created this film when I was 17 years old. And I think this will give you a bit better of an idea of what I do than my speech can, so let's take a look.
What happens is we actually wait. We don't force tonic immobility on any sharks. If they don't want to do it, they won't do it. The sharks are wild animals, so some days they like it, some days they don't. I sit and stroke it. It's a very, very special feeling for me, and that's why I really, really love the sharks for that.
With the sharks. But in my opinion, tonic just gets them a little closer, you know. It really involves man and sharks together and a connection that we all have together, you know, and so it's really quite special.
And then once they see you put them in tonic and everything, they are obsessed with them as well, and this is what we need. We need people's minds to change, that it's not, you know, Jaws tree out there, it's something else.
But if these sharks were man-eaters, we couldn't put, you know, 25 people in a circle and put a bait box in the middle and not have somebody be eaten alive. You know what I mean?
Green.
Why aren't you scared of sharks?
Why be afraid of sharks? Sharks have never given me a reason to be afraid of them, so I'm not going to be afraid of them.
And you just feel it through the water, you feel something. And I turned around, and here he is with this shark in his hands. And he's got it almost asleep in tonic. It's the most incredible thing you've ever seen. What would you do to protect your world, to protect the ones you love? That's what we do to protect sharks. I've seen ecosystems crash because of it, and I've seen shark populations disappear. I'm 17 years old. I started diving when I was 11. I should not have seen that by now. So, I'm now 19 years old, and I've logged more than 500 dives in our oceans, and most of them with sharks. I've fed sharks and been in the water with sharks. And the only thing that's ever chased me and tried to bite me was a turtle. So, I am actually worried about a future in an ocean with no sharks. I'm worried about seeing more reefs devastated and collapse because the sharks are being taken from them and no one is brave enough to stand up and stop it. It's a perfect example of how human fear can often take over our minds, and we can completely neglect a creature just because it's not pretty or cuddly or cute. But I was just a child that loved this animal, and I needed these films to show people that and to help this animal. So I hope that's the impact that it had on you, and I hope that I can keep doing that. So shark fishing inside the Great Barrier Reef is legal. And if I could tell a young mind right now anything, it's that when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Now, what I understand is controversial for some people, and I've even been called a delinquent for trying to stop these things from happening, but I think that's okay. In a world where this much environmental damage is legal, it's okay to be a delinquent. And although I don't want to stand up here, thanks. I don't want to stand up here and tell you that sharks are harmless, but they're certainly not the man-eaters that we've seen in Jaws. And I rely on people here to make a difference. You can walk away today and say no to eating shark meat and no to eating flake. Don't listen to the media stories that happen. Don't eat at a place that serves shark fin soup. You can send a letter to the government. There's so much that you can do. And honestly, when I was a child, I didn't know that one person could make a difference. And I didn't believe it. I thought I would do everything that I could. And I would try and save my little piece of reef, and I would save the Great Barrier Reef. And although it's not idealistic in my head, and my first film looked like the Blair Witch Project, I stuck with it, and I'm happy with what I've accomplished so far and what I will keep accomplishing. And one person can make a difference. I think that's a very important message that every youth should walk away for. And I think the people in power today making decisions, the government's making decisions in this day and age, they won't be around to see the consequences. It's my generation that will be around when there's no fish because there's no sharks. So I believe that I have every right to impact those decisions, and I hope that I can, and I hope that you watch Jaws next time, and if you watch it in reverse, it's actually about a shark that throws up so many people they have to open a beach. That is my favorite impression of Jaws, so it's still a good movie. It's one of my favorite movies, but yeah. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks.